What if I told you that 12 seconds of a Russian phone call gave Ukrainian intelligence everything they had been searching for over 14 months, and the Russian officer who made that call had no idea that the moment he said one single word out loud, 3 regions of his own supply network were about to go dark? It was 3:47 in the morning when the signal arrived. A small room in a basement somewhere west of Kharkiv. 3 analysts on duty, cold coffee, 6 monitors, the hum of cooling fans. Nothing unusual about that night until a green indicator on screen number 4 began to blink. The intercept lasted 12 seconds. That was the entire conversation. 12 seconds of a Russian officer speaking on what he believed to be a secure encrypted line near the city of Belgorod. He had used this line for months. He had grown comfortable. He had grown careless. The analyst on duty that night was a 31-year-old woman, whose name has not been released to this day. She had been transferred from the Central Directorate 8 months earlier, and was known among her colleagues for one quality: she did not sleep. While other analysts rotated in 12-hour shifts, she stayed in that basement room for 16, sometimes 18 hours. She drank tea. She read every transcript. She remembered names that other analysts had forgotten weeks ago. Her colleagues described her as quiet but never distant. She rarely spoke in meetings. She kept a leather notebook that she filled with handwritten observations because she did not trust the digital archive alone. She believed that something written by hand was something that would not be lost. When the 12-second intercept landed on her desk, she did not react immediately. She listened to it once. She listened to it twice. On the third listen, her hands stopped moving. The Russian officer had used a code name, a simple 2-syllable word that meant nothing on its own. But she had seen that word before. She had seen it in a transcript from October of the previous year. She had seen it again in February. She had seen it a third time in May, buried inside a low-priority intercept that had been marked as routine and archived. 3 appearances over 14 months, each time the same word, each time spoken by a different Russian officer in a different region. And until that morning, no one had connected them. She pulled the older transcripts. She laid them out on her desk. She matched the timestamps against troop movement reports, against satellite imagery, against fuel consumption records that had been collected by drone reconnaissance over the previous year. The pattern emerged slowly. Then it emerged all at once. The code word was not the name of an operation. It was the name of a route, a specific corridor used by Russian logistics units to move supplies between 3 separate regions. The route had been designed to look random: different trucks, different convoys, different times of day. But every officer who used the route had been trained to mention the code word at the moment of departure. A simple verification, a way of confirming to the receiving end that the right convoy was on its way. For 14 months, that single word had passed through Ukrainian intelligence channels, and no one had recognized it. Until that morning. Until 12 seconds in a basement room west of Kharkiv. The analyst did not call her supervisor. Not yet. She spent the next 4 hours building a map. She cross-referenced every appearance of the code word with weather data, road conditions, and the locations of known Russian-fueled depots. She tracked phantom convoys backward through time. She found patterns within patterns. By the time the sun rose over the city, she had reconstructed an entire supply network that the Russian Ministry of Defense believed to be invisible. The network spanned 3 regions. It moved an estimated 400 tons of material per week. It had been operational since the early months of the war, and it had been the single most important reason that Russian forces in those regions had remained supplied despite repeated Ukrainian strikes against more visible logistics targets. And the entire structure rested on one weakness: the code word. At 7 in the morning, she walked into her supervisor's office and placed a single page on his desk. The page contained the code word, the 3 regions, and a list of 17 specific intercepts going back 14 months. He read it twice. He picked up the secure phone. The call lasted 4 minutes. What happened over the next 6 days has never been fully declassified. What is known is that Ukrainian intelligence began monitoring every channel where the code word might appear. Every Russian officer who spoke it was now a tracked individual. Every convoy associated with the code word was now a known target. The Russians, completely unaware that the word had been compromised, continued to use it. They continued to confirm departures. They continued to verify receipts. For 6 days, Ukrainian intelligence watched. They did not strike. They did not announce. They built a complete picture of the network in real time. They identified the dispatchers. They mapped the depots. They located the relay stations. On the 7th day, 3 coordinated operations began within a window of 40 minutes. The strikes did not target trucks or soldiers. They targeted the infrastructure. Fuel storage points went dark. Communication relays went silent. 2 key bridges along secondary routes were rendered unusable through methods that were never publicly described. By the end of that day, the network that had supplied Russian forces across 3 regions for over a year had ceased to function. The Russian officer who had made the original 12-second phone call was reassigned within the week. He was not informed of why. He was simply moved to a desk position in a different region. According to one account that surfaced months later, he never learned that his single careless moment on a phone he believed to be secure had led to one of the largest logistics disruptions of that phase of the war. In the basement west of Kharkiv, the analyst who had recognized the word went back to her shift the following night. She drank her tea. She listened to new intercepts. She kept her notes. Her name was not mentioned in any report. Her photograph did not appear in any publication. According to colleagues who spoke later under conditions of anonymity, she did not consider what she had done remarkable. She had simply remembered a word. But that one word had carried a network for 14 months, and her memory had carried that word across 3 transcripts and 400 sleepless hours of listening. It was not technology that had brought down the system. It was not satellite imagery. It was not artificial intelligence. It was a single human being in a basement room who had refused to forget. The Russian command spent weeks trying to understand what had happened. Internal reviews were ordered. Communication protocols were rewritten. The code word was retired and replaced with a new system. But the damage to the network could not be undone. The supplies that had moved through those 3 regions were now forced onto longer, more dangerous routes. Convoys that had previously taken 8 hours now took 22. Fuel consumption tripled. Vehicle losses to weather and road conditions rose sharply. For Ukrainian intelligence, the operation was studied internally as a model of patience. 12 seconds of audio had been the trigger, but the foundation had been 14 months of quiet, repetitive, often boring work by analysts who had been told that nothing they were doing seemed to matter. Sometimes nothing turns out to be everything. Sometimes a single word, spoken by a single tired officer at the end of a long night, contains more strategic information than 1,000 hours of satellite footage. The story of that morning in Kharkiv has been told in fragments by various sources over the years. Some details remain classified, some never will be confirmed. But the underlying truth is something that intelligence officers on both sides of the conflict have privately acknowledged. In modern war, the most valuable intelligence rarely arrives in dramatic packages. It arrives quietly. It arrives in the form of words that no one was supposed to hear, spoken by people who believed they were alone, captured in moments that lasted only seconds. And it sits often for months, waiting for the one analyst who will recognize it for what it is. The walls of that basement room held many such moments over the course of the war. Most of them were never acted upon. Most of them faded into the archive and remained there, indexed but unread. The story of the 12-second intercept stood out only because someone had been awake to hear it. In the months that followed, accounts of that 12-second intercept moved through intelligence circles in fragments. Some called it luck. Others called it the natural outcome of patience. The analyst herself, according to those who knew her, never spoke about it again. She continued her work in the basement room. She continued her tea. She continued her notes. The war continued around her, as wars do. And somewhere in a Russian archive, the original phone call still exists. 12 seconds. One word. A pattern that no one had been meant to see. If this story showed you that the quietest moments often carry the loudest consequences, consider following this channel for more accounts of operations that history almost forgot. Each week we examine the small decisions, the overlooked details, and the human moments that shaped the outcomes of modern conflict. These are the stories that rarely reach the news cycle. They are the stories that intelligence officers, soldiers, and analysts on every side of every front know better than anyone else. Your support helps us keep finding them. We will see you in the next account.